Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Now today we've got a transatlantic fireside chat with none other than Yankee Stacking. It's a really fun video and we hope you all enjoy.
This is going to be a great video. Backyard Bullion is joining me again for a video, the second time we've done this, and we're going to have a lot of fun in this collaboration. So let me introduce to you Backyard Bullion. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Yankee. And yourself?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. Well, it's great to finally sit down with you again for another transatlantic fireside chat. It's been a while since our last one. And I want to say a big thank you to everybody out there in YouTube land who watched the first one, enjoyed it, commented, and has been nagging myself to sit down with you and do yet another one of these podcasts. We've got a lot of really fun topics to talk about today, and hopefully there'll be something for everybody as we go through today's video. Now, I just want to remind everybody that we are putting this live on both our channels. So if you are subscribed to me but not Yankee, make sure you head over to his channel and subscribe. And likewise, if you're watching this on Yankee's channel and you're not subscribed to me, head on over to my channel. Otherwise, put a thumbs up on this video as we go through. It really does help everything that both of us do here on YouTube. So without further ado, let's crack on with today's topic, which I think the overarching theme should be: what does the value of gold and silver mean to you? And we're going to talk a little bit, I guess, about the cultural differences between the UK and the USA, because I do think there's some great differences and some insights to be had from both sides of the pond.
I love that topic, though. I think that's fantastic. It brings back to me a quote. I remember my dad saying that a lot of people know the price of everything, but the value of nothing.
That's a lovely quote. It's interesting, isn't it? But that's so true, I think, with gold and silver. I've said it and I've noticed it on the world just generally. I think quite the large proportion of people in this world don't really truly know what silver and gold really mean, or even their price. And if you say what spot price is, people don't even know what that phrase is most of the time.
That's true.
So it's more prevalent, I would say, here. I think one of the biggest cultural differences that I've observed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do feel like there's more knowledge in the US than there is in the UK, just generally about silver and gold as a investable item, or at least something of value. How do you perceive that?
That's interesting. I can't really speak to Europe or UK and the mindset of gold and silver, although I have to admit, when you do that, you're mesmerizing me, man. You're throwing me off my gig here. If you could focus on that, would be awesome, man, because those are gorgeous gold coins. Oh man, Queen's Beast in gold, man. Where'd my
I've got all 9 of them out here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to distract you.
That's okay. I got a couple Queen's Beasts too, but they ain't in gold, maybe. And I definitely love gold. I think you guys do tend to focus on gold more, no?
Yeah, I'd say that's the big kind of cultural difference for us. I think that silver, having the taxes that's attracted to it with VAT and various other, it's more of an industrial metal, as we all know in the world, but the British government really does sort of tax that as such. So I think gold traditionally has been more of the place for the serious stacker, and it's weird to say that because I mean, gold is expensive. That's, if you want to buy an ounce of gold, that's quite a lot of money. But if you're just a casual coin collector who's not really investing but more enjoying the collection, then perhaps silver is a bit more prevalent. But there's this kind of way of thinking that a coin collector is a little bit boring, a little bit closety. It's the balding middle-aged man who goes around.
A little dated, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But in America, I get the sense that coin collecting is actually, it's a cool thing, or it's not necessarily mainstream cool, but it's seen as a little bit more of a doable thing that's not so closety, if that makes sense.
It is. I mean, when I started, as a kid, it was about coin collecting. My grandfather was all into that. I still have the books of pennies and everything else that I collected with him. And my father kind of got me into stacking in the 80s when we went down and bought some constitutional silver dimes to be specific. And that was sort of my intro to the whole idea of precious metals and coin collecting. But again, decades later, coin collecting has really suffered a lot from just, I think the the video game mentality and a lot of other distractions. People want things fast. They want a lot of change, and that's a very focused type of hobby, similar to like, modeling or model rocketry or anything that's like, you're doing something very slow and deliberate, I think it's less popular by far now than it was in the past. Yeah, coin collecting, yeah.
Do you think that has to do with shifting in, obviously there's a shift in culture from sort of the 21st century, but I also think there's like almost like an attention span cultural change in the world. I've noticed it within myself even, that nowadays if I'm watching a TV program or a film or something, I can lose interest so quickly, whereas 20 years ago when I was in my teens and I could binge watch TV for weekends,
right?
Literally 48 hours just transfixed to the TV for a particular series.
True.
But now I just find I can't do that, and my attention waxes and wanes. And I think there's definitely a kind of cultural shift in the world away from the kind of physical side of things, and you need everything now instantly. And
we see that in movies now. I mean, I watched something with Little Stacks. He's like saying, yeah, that's not practical, Dad. I'm like, wait, what? He means the physical is going out. We're going to be seeing virtual actors like it's going to be commonplace very soon. So again, that physical, the touching is sometimes lacking. However, when it comes to stacking now, I think we definitely in the U.S. Have that maybe in spades over the U.K. That mentality of stacking.
It'd be interesting to do a kind of percentage of what population stacks. If there's any kind of stat out there, it'd be so difficult to do. But I do think that you guys in the US, there's more ownership of silver generally, whether it be in modern bullion eagles or even just old silver coins that were coin hunted from circulation. Right. There's definitely more of that than in the UK. I think it's very, very uncommon to find anybody who truly invests in silver or gold. There might be quite a few people who have like a gold ring or a gold bangle or something, but that's very different to this stuff, bullion coins.
I agree with you. Yeah, and gold has been, for me personally, has been my focus back in 2009 with a Yankee Cannon. That's a tube of gold. That was really my first step into stacking, bullion, gold, bullion. But then silver, in 2018 was really my focus. So silver was a great time to start. Now with what's been going on, I shifted back away, maybe being more like a European and going with the gold. That's what I'm focusing on right now.
Well, I think for me, it's really been an eye-opener this 2020, and we talked, I think, quite at length about that in the first video we did together. Right. So I don't really want to recover old ground, but for me, in certainly the last couple of months, it's reinforced that silver is actually it's a valuable asset. And whilst it went down horribly at the start of this, for whatever reasons they might have been, it has come back up again, and the premiums are holding right now. The dealers still are charging quite a lot, and when those will come down, we'll have to wait and see.
I think your question about value and price is extremely important, because right now we've seen some volatility, some significant volatility in price. But it's important to remember what value is. When we talk, in terms of precious metals, silver, what is the value? I like to look at it as the value compared to what? Compared to gold, compared to things, supplies, goods and services, compared to the markets. It's in relationship to other things that I think value really shines when it comes to precious metals.
So the value, that's where I really want to take this, because that's the overarching theme, isn't it? What value does silver and gold have to individuals? So I want to ask that question directly too. I'll answer it as well after you've done, but you go first. What does silver and gold mean in terms of value to you? What is it about gold and silver that has value for you?
Well, I think I can't divorce it from the good old USA. I have to think about it in the context of my country and my history, especially my history. In fact, I think it would be important for me to give you hopefully a really short history lesson about silver and gold, because bottom line, for me and many of the people that I know, it's money. And the role of silver and gold is so important to us, especially in America. So hopefully you'll get something from this. But back in 1775, start of the American Revolutionary War, the battle that we had with you guys.
That's all right. I'm
okay.
not bitter about it in any way.
Don't mean to trigger you.
No,
but yeah,
good.
so hey, it's all good, man. The Continental Congress actually began issuing paper money. I don't know if you know what it was called, but it was called
no, it wasn't a dollar then, was it?
It was
continental currency.
Continental currency. That's what they called it. Called the Continentals. And they had all kinds of denominations, like I think it was $0.01 of a dollar, $80 denominations for this currency. It's paper, right?
Yeah.
Well, during the war, that Continental went way down in value. It depreciated huge. In fact, they came up with a term called "not worth a Continental."
Sure.
That was it. It was crap. And of course, there was some counterfeiting going on by the British. So, thanks.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay, no problem.
I'm not bitter now, but I suspect that they were quite salty about it back in the day. So
big time. Yeah. So around 1780, the bills were worth like 1/40th of their face value.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Like $100 bill worth $2.50 today.
Yeah.
So that is inflation. It was massive. It was just debilitating at that time. So when our founding fathers got together and they created our sacred document known as the U.S. Constitution, they put in some really explicit language. In fact, hold on. I think I got a handy dandy constitutional book here. So, yeah, we love this, right?
We don't have something like that here in the UK, you know.
No, you don't, huh?
But anyway, I don't want to distract you. Go on.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
love history. I love this.
No problem. I'm not going to get into it too detailed, but in Article 1, Section 8, it talked about money and that the Congress was going to have the power to coin money. Very important. It said coin money.
Yeah.
And regulate the value and all that. And then also, of course, provide for punishment of counterfeiting because, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So, and then Article 1, Section 10, they said this is really important. They said that no state shall, among a bunch of other stuff, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Very important.
Very, very good.
They put it right in the Constitution.
Yeah. So it really is.
It's
money.
right there, right? And why? Why did they do that? They put that language there very explicitly to absolutely ensure that we would not go back to another fiat currency. Okay? They wanted a monetary system based on gold and silver coinage. And that was the official money, if you will, for the U.S. And all the founding fathers talked about this. In fact, some of them, like, who was it? James Madison. He was also our fourth president, I think. He talked about it too, and he said this, and I do want to say this quote because this is the final thing that I really want to drive home. He said about that clause, the stuff that they put in there, the Continental Congress. He said that the pretext for paper currency, and particularly for making the bills a tender either for public and private debts, was cut off. Done. No more paper currency for debts, for payment. Mm-hmm. I don't think we've been very successful at that going forward. I think the Supreme Court's kind of dumped on us over and over again and violated that. But right now, we have Federal Reserve notes. That's not money. It's just flat out currency. It's fiat currency. Yeah. And then, I think in 1971, we said, we're not backing our currency by anything but the full faith and credit of the United States.
Yeah.
That is a big driver for some of us U.S. Stackers. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we like to stack silver coinage, from 1964 and prior. So I'm just going to reach into my box.
Oh, I love that sound. That is a gorgeous sound.
Yeah, and I don't want to desecrate my American flag here, so I'm just going to dump all that there. So this is money.
Yeah.
This is very important to us, whether it be quarters or half dollars, dimes. This is special. And I just feel that, that is one of the things that we focus on because of the value that it that it represents.
Yeah.
So again, I think it's a U.S. focus for a lot of stackers.
It's really interesting to sort of hear that, because I'll give you my answer now.
Okay.
So my way of thinking, and I guess this has all be taken with a pinch of salt, because I'm relatively new to this whole game. I've only been buying silver in terms of an investment for 4.5 years now. But for me, what it represents is wealth and how that wealth can be kept. So it's a similar premise, I guess, that you have this fiat currency, but more and more so, and it's this idea of it being precious. So, it's like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, my precious. I do genuinely value this as something precious. And there is something about this stuff, whether it be yellow stuff, white stuff, platinum, gold, silver, it has this lure to you, this allure that brings people in. And for me, it's grown. And maybe it's call it gold fever, but you get this sense that you actually have something that's worth money. Oh, look at that, an Oriental Border Britannia.
Yeah,
I love those. They're really good. That's the 18. It's my favorite of the three. Look, stop distracting me. Guys,
I had to get you back, man.
I'm going to put my video on the screen, so yours is tiny. So yeah, look, I personally do very much have similar ways of thinking with yourself in terms of the fiat currencies and devaluations, but for me it's more about wealth preservation, and I view it in that as being the value. So I don't necessarily view a lot of like the eagles here, I don't view these as money makers, as currency that I could use at some point in the future. I view them as tokens by which I can continue to live the life that I want to live with the wealth that we have and that we want to keep at some point in the future. So whether that's even for small purchases like cashing it in to buy, your groceries or whatever, or whether it's the bigger gold stuff to cash in and help buy a house or a car or whatever it might be. For me, that's a saving mechanism, which I use it for, rather than kind of a monetary currency system. And I feel that that's a good representation of what most people here in the United Kingdom would also say for their gold and silver. I am not shy about potential profit on a piece of gold or silver. If I have a piece of gold or silver which I think can make some short-term profit, and I can re-roll that money up into something else, I will, and I don't feel guilt about that. But I think that's probably say again.
Neither should you. I mean,
no,
especially in the United States, we love our capitalistic mindset.
Well, it is that capitalistic mindset, but at the same time, Yankee, and this is actually a topic for one of my videos in the near future, and I've been mulling over it for a while. I have almost got a little bit of seller's remorse somewhat on a fair amount of silver that's been sold. So for those who are watching who don't know, I make my own silver bars, and I've got some of them here on the table. Not this one, this is a different one. That's to be chopped up and melted one day.
You're going to chop that up?
If I ever get around to it. It was bought specifically as a melt bar because it was so cheap, but it is the last thing that will be melted. But anyway, the point is, from everything that I do with the hand-poured silver, we're selling on average about 8 or 9 kilos worth of silver per month when you average it out across the year. Right. And of course, you have to buy in the raw material to process it, to send it out. And part of me always goes at the end of the month when you've sent out so much and you think, oh God, maybe I should have kept that. What's happening in the world right now? Will I need that in future?
I see.
But then, of course,
your stacker mentality kicks in there.
Yeah. So I've got two heads on at the moment. I've got my stacker mentality, which is growing it's growing by going, no, this stuff's really valuable. You need to keep it. You just got to look at where gold's gone over the last, sort of 3-4 years. Well, 2 years maybe, but 5 years. It was down around the £700 mark. It's doubled in value across 5 years. And
yeah, I got this for $1,000 an ounce.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Amazing, huh?
The stacker in me says you should keep this stuff because in 10-20 years time it will be worth more. But then there's the business minded part of me, which is like, well, you're trying to run a business here, and of course so many other companies around the world are trying to run businesses, whether they be the Samsungs, Apples, or whatever it might be, that use silver in their products, or you've got to kind of continue on with life as you can. But there is this inner part of me that goes, this stuff could be skyrocketed one day,
Mm-hmm.
or it could really help in that kind of eventuality where currencies are not valued anymore. So it's interesting that what I want to sort of reflect on is that my mentality is changing, and my mentality has changed from the start, where I bought these, well, not these ones, but I bought some silver coins specifically to hold for maybe a year, sell, get a bit of profit, like any other investment that you might have, stocks and shares or whatever it might be. But that has quickly changed. So that's a very long-winded.
No, that's
but
excellent.
It's good, isn't it?
I love to hear that. Yeah.
I think we've had two very different looks and mentalities on what it means, but ultimately I feel that we're crossing over on quite a lot of that common theme, which is that it is real. You know, this stuff is tangible and touchable, and numbers on a screen scare the living daylights out of me.
I think that's fascinating. I mean, I love hearing the evolution, if you will, this change of some. You know, I think overall you still have the same mindset towards precious metals, but there's some nuanced changes there, and I think that's fantastic. I've seen it in other people. Frankly, I'm still stacking the Yankee way. I haven't really changed mine a whole lot. I have to admit, the last few months has solidified my position in my mindset in terms of, you know, the three things that I focus on. But it's just amazing to see how I think people are coming around to this. I really do. I think it's growing. I mean, look at the demand. Look at the demand on the physical side. It's been remarkable.
It's mad.
What are you
so
showing
here's just a little example, I think, of what's special about silver and gold coinage. So this was a gift that was given to me by a customer that I met in London, who is from Egypt, and he was in London on business, and I went and met him and handed over some orders that he'd made, and he gave me this as a gift, and it's a 1,370 odd year old coin from the year 717 AD.
Oh wow.
And you know, this is a real.
Did you say 17?
1717, sorry, 717 AD. So over 1,300 years old. And you know, this is this is the oldest coin I have, and we all know that, you know, the ancients used gold and silver, but to really, the coins haven't changed much. You know, they're round, they're coins, and they're used as money, and they preserve. And look, this is what silver will look like in 1,300 years' time.
So you said something really interesting there. You said something interesting that I want to jump on just for a second. Yeah. It's round. I've commented on this in other videos, but I truly believe there is something in the human mind that looks at round objects as money. You know,
I think it's just ingrained into our psyches and culture, isn't it?
I agree. It really is. Nothing against, you know, bars. I think that's great especially for larger stacks and people that are really stacking for weight. I did a video on this just yesterday. I dropped about the different ways to stack, and I think that's fine. It's just that when you look at it from a monetary standpoint, I think the roundness of a coinage is really just, you know, baked into a lot of our viewpoints as to what money is.
Well, I'm not any kind of expert silversmith, but having worked with silver for quite a while now, I can imagine.
Wait a minute. No. I got to stop you. No, you are an expert. Wow. Oh my word, you're amazing. Go on.
The jury's out on that. Anyway, the point is, so I can only imagine that back in the day when they were melting some silver or gold and pouring it, and then striking it to make it into a coin. First of all, it's kind of a liquid, and when you pour a liquid out, it just wants to make a circle. A circle is, in nature and physics, the simplest and most easy shape for anything to make from a liquid, because of gravity, obviously. And so I can only imagine that was kind of the easiest thing. But when striking a coin as well, of course, you're flattening it, and everything is going to be pushed outwards evenly and distributed evenly. So if you make a square coin and then you stamp it, you're probably going to end up with something that's not square shaped. So I don't know, maybe that's something to do with it. But anyway, that was a side tangent on the circular nature of coins and why they were.
That's a cool idea.
I don't know. So what I really like about this, though, and it does sort of make me really think about this whole connection with value, is that, you know, somebody made this coin, somebody gave it value, and it maintains that value through our own collective human culture. So despite the fact that we have very different ways of looking at it between the US and the UK and probably various different countries around the world value different precious metals in different ways. You've only got to look at sort of, you know, the Indian cultures around gold and gift giving, in China as well. It's very common. And, you know, the one thing that unites us all is that we all still believe, rightly so, that silver and gold are valuable and have wealth built into their intrinsic nature. It's interesting that we as humans collectively have all done that on different parts of the globe at different times throughout history, with no connections with one another. We've all gravitated to these two main metals and made them our money and currency. And that's what, in my mind, solidifies that whilst we're in this 21st century of change and digitalization and connectivity, there is still this underlying thing that unites us. And it's like I said, the gold fever, the precious nature of these things, it does. You know, you get hold of a big gold coin for the first time and you go, wow, yes, please. And that will be the same, I think, in 200 years' time when we're no longer using physical coins and notes and currencies.
Well, it's not random either. I mean, there's a reason that silver and gold fulfill that purpose. They're rare, but they're not too rare. Like palladium or rhodium or platinum. Those are very rare. And, you know, gold and silver, the properties, I won't go through them all, but they really lend itself well to being coinage, to being real money. You mentioned value. These metals appreciate in value over long periods of time. Our paper currency, which I don't have a dollar bill, I wish I had one right here. You could see a Federal Reserve note right across the top. They depreciate, and what we're seeing right now is unprecedented inflation of the currency supply. We are printing like madmen all over the place. The United States is going bonkers.
It's the same here in the UK.
Right.
So actually, that's so let's talk a little bit about a connected topic to that. I do think that we should talk about that sort of a macroeconomics and, you know, discussion that we could talk for another hour at, I'm sure. But one of the connections to that is around, of course, the ability to sell your gold if you need to. So we are in these unprecedented times where people very sadly are very hard up in certain cases, and they may have lost their jobs altogether, or they may be facing the prospect of losing their jobs when government support kind of runs out and the world starts to try to get back to normal. How do you sort of perceive the gold and silver selling culture in the US? I know there's obviously some very big cultural differences in kind of physical locations, but generally speaking, with everything that's going on with COVID and things like that, have you got any insights for us what it's like over there to be able to sell your gold and silver? Is it easy, hard?
It's actually quite easy to sell because a lot of people aren't. I know my local coin shop dealer would be like, bring it on if you want to sell. In fact, just the other day, I've been focusing on gold. I'm a very focused, very deliberate stacker. So when I get on something, and I'm trying to create a maple musket right now, which is a 25 tube of 25 quarter-ounce gold maple leaves, Canadian maple leaves. I just want to very quickly interject and say, your Yankee cannon and Yankee musket, they are under threat from one day I shall have the backyard blunderbuss of these. The black. I can't remember who suggested it, but somebody in the comment section suggested it. A backyard blunderbuss of these 50 pesos. It's by far and away my favorite gold coin. Those are gorgeous, dude. You should definitely do that. But anyways, I focus on gold, really, especially now due to the premium. The silver premiums are still crazy. They're coming down a bit, but they're still kind of crazy. But the other day, I had someone in the Instagram community reach out to me and say, Yankee, I want to sell a couple of my tubes. And so I met him. He sold these to me for under spot, way under spot. It was an amazing deal. So I had to stray from my gold focus and grab these while I can. But selling something like that is so quick and easy, especially in person. And then he came back and actually said, I got some more eagles, and he even sold me a tube of generic buffaloes. So I mean, I had to say yes just because of the price, but selling is definitely easy. It's just not happening. People don't sell it very easily, so they want to hodl it. They want to hold on for dear life.
So I've noticed it's a difficult one because in the UK we don't have by any stretch what you would deem the local coin shop. We have a few of them in various cities, and maybe some of the bigger cities have a few sort of sporadically located, but really there's very, very few. And again, it's I think down to that culture of coin collecting being seen as this old man's, balding old middle-aged man type thing, and it's just not for everybody. So for us, it's all about selling online, digitally, and through forums and social media.
Yep, like the
and I've noticed an awful lot of metal. I would say proportionally, the UK seems to be selling more of their metal right now than not. And there's a lot of people who are cashing out of silver and cashing into gold, but there's also quite a few people who have been cashing out of their gold because they view it as a profit maker from when they bought it maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it is tempting, at the end of the day. For example, something like this here, a 5 sovereign piece would have been picked up for I could quite easily pick this up for about £1,050. It's worth about 1,700 now. So you look at that and you think, yeah, that's £600 plus profit, which some people sadly need to kind of have right now if they have lost their job or if they, financially are required to do so.
Right.
So I do think the kind of culture of you guys in the US, generally the stacker mentality being more prevalent. You're more of a, what's the phrase, hodl or hold.
That's right, hold on for dear life.
Yes, hodl. And here in the UK, I think we're a little bit more open-minded and pragmatic about taking our profit where we can. And
opportunistic.
Yeah, I think, there's nothing wrong with that. There are people out there who will be quite happy with, a £600 profit. I personally don't like to live with regrets, but sometimes, you let something go and you think, I let that go a year ago. If I hadn't done, I could have made even more money right now.
It's the flipper. It's the flipper stacker mentality, or somebody that like this coin that I got back in '29. The black flag. I've sold some of these.
Yeah,
and
that's fine. Love that coin.
But what I do with the profits, I put them back into gold mostly. But I invest that way, if you will. I don't necessarily consider this an investment, but there's my poured round. So yeah, I mean it's definitely valuable in that sense. Some people just love collecting it, and it's valuable to them. But it's intrinsically valuable, like you said.
Yes, I think that's the most important thing. Well, actually, I say that there's another really important topic which we talked about trying to talk a little bit about here, and that's financial responsibility. And I do want to see what your thoughts are on some of the cultural differences, because I think here in the UK we're generally quite a lot more conservative with our cash, with our money, and Joe average blogs probably won't go out and buy gold and silver. He'll just really focus on what he wants, and then maybe if he's going to make that decision, he'll do it an awful lot more. He'll go out and he'll try and find the best place to buy it. Whereas sometimes you get the impression that there's an awful lot of hype that can be driven from the US culture and media around gold and silver, and people then suddenly try and jump in as much as they can because they think it's the best thing to do. I hope I'm not generalizing too much there.
No, the US, we have a perception, and I think it's somewhat warranted, as being, at least in the generations since the baby boomers, we see, we want, we get. And we're not as fiscally responsible as, say, my parents, or who are in their 80s, coming through the Great Depression, being savers, being very conservative fiscally. We've lost a lot of that. In fact, when I was talking to them the other day, they said, we know what it means to be prepared, or prep, if you will, to have money for a rainy day, to be able to save for an emergency, to have that kind of reserve. We don't live that way in the U.S. We are focused on getting what we want now. In fact, now is a little late. It should have been yesterday. It's amazing, that mentality. Not to say that it couldn't shift. I have a Gen Zer under my roof right now. I'm honestly wondering what Little Stacks will be facing and how he will change his mentality. What will that generation look at after we've come through this medical and, I think, economic crisis? So in the United States, I think we've got a lot to learn, and I think that lesson will be learned. Unfortunately, I think I think the way it's going to be learned is going to be extremely painful in the next a decade. I don't think we get out of this decade unscathed in the
No, I
United
think
States.
the 20s are going to be a tough one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the thing that I guess kind of irks me quite a lot is that there does seem to be this. It's like almost like a conspiracy theory that the gold and silver will be the thing that you need to survive. When in my head, we're quite different on this, because I know that you're very much into this financial preparation.
I'm
financially prepared. Don't get me wrong, but I'm also not a prepper.
Yes,
but there is a very different culture.
I'll convince you one day.
Prepping.
It's your pet project of mine.
I'm coming around to it.
I'm kidding,
got a
man.
lot more,
I
a lot
am
more
joking.
canned food in the house than we used to, but still, we don't have the bunkers and stuff. So there is this kind of culture perception in the US that you guys have, have your bunkers, have your guns, your ammo, all of your gold and silver,
not a doomsday
dried food.
prepper. I don't have a bunker.
But then there's this sort of overarching thing of financial responsibility, and for those people who are kind of new to precious metals this year, I do try and say it all the time on my channel. Even though you might want to buy this to hold it forever, you have to understand that the world works on fiat currencies, like it or hate it. And I know, by the sounds of everything, Yankee, I can probably say which camp you're in. But love it or hate it, money is what makes the world go round, that famous phrase. And, having some money to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, buy your groceries is critical. And for people to go all in often seems like a very bad idea from my mindset.
Well, first of all, not that you're pigeonholing me. I have a variety of investment vehicles that are making me cash flow and other ways, like private mortgage lending and so forth. So don't look at this and think, oh, this is what Yankee does. He just invests in this stuff. No, this is wealth preservation, something you said earlier, very important to preserve our buying power against what I think is going to be stagflation and then hyperinflation potentially. So don't get me wrong, I invest, but I just don't look at this as a very good investment. Yeah, I flip some stuff, but you're not going to make massive amounts of money unless you are a big coin dealer dealing in bulk and doing some massive flipping to really to invest, I think, to cash flow and to yield. So this, again, yeah, I do have a prepper mindset. I think it's starting to sink in with a lot of people during what we've gone through, that, oh my word, yeah, you kind of need to rely on yourself a little bit more, not just big state nanny. Now, I know we're also different in that regard too. United States has been very individualistic in the past, very, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps type of thing. But I prep with food, I prep with water, I prep with things that I think are important to, because I don't want to be in a Katrina type situation, waving a flag and saying, when is the government going to come and save me? I think that's a bad mentality. And in fact, even the government says to prep to some degree. They have the site ready.gov, and they say you really should have a few months of this or that. So that's the approach that I take, and that is sort of how the lens that I look at precious metals. It's a means to an end. It's trying to protect us from the ravages of inflation and what our governments are doing around the world. This is an unprecedented time, BYB. This is huge.
Certainly is. We saw, I wasn't investing in gold and silver at the time, but I remember back in 2008 and 9, I lost a job because of the situation that we were in as a world. And that all seems child's play, I think, compared with where we are now. And like you say, I think this whole decade is going to be defined by the economic instability that's going to follow. And I think that's outside of gold and silver, there's so many people who are saying, oh, stocks and shares are at their lowest right now. You should go and buy things like IAG or the airlines and things like that, because they're
buy
such
Hertz.
A bargain
they're
price.
bankrupt. Talk about a deal.
Yeah, I know, and you kind of feel like
Robinhood app is the place to be right now. But I think we're going to see a lot of people
There's definitely money to be made, and there's these depressions and sort of highs. That's why I call it bull and bear market, because they go up, they go down, and there will be money to be made on both sides of that roller coaster. But if you think that you can go and buy some silver and make a load of money, I think you need to reevaluate why you're doing it, and that's
we are in
what
agreement there.
What we hear in the Backyard Bullion household think about sort of the value of gold and silver, bringing it back to that topic,
Yes.
arching topic of why we get it. So we don't, and I don't mean to preach. It's always interesting, isn't it? Everybody needs to make up their own minds.
Yes.
But for us, it seems right as part of our bigger portfolio. And like you said, we've also got other, fingers in other pies. We've got various different assets and investments that can yield over time. But gold and silver, by far and away, are the ones that I get to enjoy the most. And
Well,
of course
present company not excluded. You know how to make money, and you know how to make gold and silver, especially silver, and the beautiful artwork that you do give you that kind of cash flow. So I applaud you for that. I love when I see people doing what you're doing really well. I think it's fantastic. I'm just not a poor. I can't do what you do.
Very kind of you to say that. It's a lot of work, and you put a lot of work in, and I love as well seeing small. We try as best as we can, wherever we can, to always support the small business and to buy something from a small business instead of a giant conglomerate. It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Though, again, going back to the silver, I'd love to keep hold of everything I make. But Mrs. Backyard Bullion always says, no, if you do that, you're not a business. You're just wasting our money. And I was like, well, no, wasting is a difficult word to use. You're like, okay, you're not making money. You're just having money put there on one side. So
you married up, man.
I know.
She's great. She keeps you grounded, right? Same on this end of the pond.
Married up. You have no truer words said. But to put it, so this piece here, this giant ridiculous rollo with a black hole.
That is just cool.
I want to keep it. I really do. I haven't kept hardly any of my stuff.
How many of those did you make?
Say again?
How many of those did you make?
There's only one. There's only one like this so far.
Yeah, that would be hard to part with.
I don't know if I can replicate it. Maybe I can. I don't know if it looked the same, but the point is, I'm basically going to buy this off myself, and this is going to be part of the silver stack that we have going forward. Will it be sold one day? Probably yes. But for the time being, it's preserving some of the wealth that we've got, taken that mindset of that cash out of the business asset into the personal assets, separated it from church and state, so to speak. And
has that been assayed?
Yes,
right there.
These marks here are
right
the
there,
assay marks.
You have to do that over there, right?
Yes. So, well, there are loopholes, and it's one of these things where a loophole is all down to interpretation, isn't it? So for 999 silver that can be deemed bullion, and what is defined as bullion in the legislation is left completely to interpretation. So you can have whatever interpretation you want. Technically, no. However, I think from a consumer standpoint, it makes much more sense to have an assay mark on it, because this means obviously that it's been tested, and the Edinburgh Assay Office, who've been doing it for 550 years, know it's real silver, and they can verify that. So, for other things, so for example, I've got a little thing
Can
here,
I just, on an American standpoint, let me just tell you right now, we don't have to assay, but to me, that is one of the hallmarks of and I use the word hallmark intentionally there, it's one of the hallmarks of government minted silver bullion. In God we trust. Liberty. A date. United States of America. 1 ounce fine silver. $1. These, in my perspective, sort of are intrinsic assaying for me. This is why I, as part of my 3-part Stacking the Yankee Way, put the priority on even spending a tiny bit of premium, tiny bit, I like call of circulated American Silver Eagles, but a little premium on this type of coinage, because in a sense, it's self-assayed. It shows it's legit because of the mintage. That totally. I just want to give my U.S. perspective on that.
And generally coins are obviously much more easy to verify. They're all standardized. The dimensions, the weights they should be, the look, the feel, the design is easily comparable with other things. So I know exactly what you mean. But from like the assay point of view here in the UK, so something like this heart would be definitely legally required to be assayed because it's more than just bullion. This is an art piece that has a shape and a meaning, whereas this is just a giant lump of silver.
So that's the
formed.
loophole you were talking about.
So you could probably get away with this, but again, it's like, do you really want to have somebody from Trading Standards knock on your door and say, "Excuse me, Mr. Backyard Bullion, but we've had a complaint to say that maybe you should have done some hallmarking, so we want to now do an investigation and go through all of your books and all of all of this. Do you want that in your life?" And I said to myself, no, I really don't. I really don't. So, we embrace the hallmarking, even on items so I've got another thing here. I got a few goodies out to have in the background. Just a big giant bar of silver. We haven't had this one assayed yet, but it will be at some point in the near future, underneath 2020 there. But it adds value, and as you say, it's verifiable that it is indeed 909 silver. So, yeah. Lots to really kind of enjoy about the world of silver and assaying and validity, but it's an important one because you don't want to have fakes in your stack. You don't want to have this reliance on this stuff and then find out one day that it's actually not what you thought it was. So I think that's maybe a topic for another time.
Yeah, that's a
how you. Well, I have no doubt that there's going to be some people watching this going, "When's the next fireside chat, Yankee and Backyard?" So maybe at some point when we've got some time, we can have a think about what we could talk about. But I do think that kind of thing would be interesting. How you kind of verify, look at your silver, and how you manage it, and I don't know.
Yeah, when I bought these, I had to verify it. So that would definitely be a good topic for next time. And speaking of which, I think we should probably wrap this session of our little collaboration up. What do you think?
I think so. That's fine. I just want to take an opportunity to say a big thank you to everybody watching this far into our fireside chat. I think that's what we're going to call it, isn't it?
Let's do that. Let's call it the...
I like it.
Oh, man, we got to come up with a really good name. But the fireside chat with Backyard Bullion and Yankee Stacking. That sounds great.
It's fun. And I think, as I said, it is just like us having a chat in a pub next to the fire, musing about the world that we live in and the changing and difficult world that we live in as well, and how things are evolving. We haven't really even touched on how things have gone in the world in 2020 for us since we last spoke. But
when I told Mrs. Yankee I was going to do this with you today, she was like, "Oh, how's he doing it?" Well, actually, did they have to, go through the same type of social distancing and shutdowns that we went through over there in the UK? And I was like, yeah, I'm afraid so. But that would have been an interesting conversation. Maybe we'll touch on that next time.
Indeed. Hopefully by the time we sit down next time, we might even be at a point where we're not having to socially distance.
I know. I hope you're right.
So, isn't it? From my point, I find it so inhuman to be avoiding like the plague every single person you're out and about and getting all these funny looks from people if you walk past somebody just a bit too close.
Too close. Personal space. Back off. It's like weird, isn't it?
It's not normal. It's not natural to the human being to be this socially distanced.
How about just shaking hands? It's like I had somebody walk up to me and I was like, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of do an air elbow type thing, isn't it?
Even an elbow's too close, right? Oh, it's crazy.
I
think maybe next time. Next time we get together, let's hope and pray that this is behind us.
Yes. Well, in terms of the physical stuff,
true.
We've got a long way to come. I think we will touch on this, I think, at another one as well. But the financial and economic implications for everything the world's gone through will be with us for a long time. And if we can kind of conclude this, I suppose, video topic by just reinforcing that whilst the cultural differences between the US and the UK are different, I think there's a lot that we can all learn from each other in this world of gold and silver. And the one thing that does unite us is that we hold it in high regard for value. And whether that be monetary value, wealth preservation value, making some money on the side value, whatever it might be, I think we can all agree that it's good.
And we also take it upon ourselves to encourage other collectors and stackers and so forth in the community to keep on doing it. I tell people to stack on and prep on because it's very important. And I think we're making a difference, a small difference. But definitely you are with your viewership and what you do. You really help the community a lot, and I appreciate that a lot, my friend.
You're welcome. And I also get quite a lot of good insights from your stuff. I often have you, Silver Dragons, and a myriad of others on in the background when I'm working and pouring silver. And sometimes your podcast or your video. I listen to his podcast, but your video will come on, and I'll go, that's an interesting topic. I like that, and so.
Well, that made my day. Thanks.
You're welcome.
I can imagine it playing in the background as you perform your magic with silver. That would be so cool. All right. Well, thank you again for doing this interview, this fireside chat, and I look forward to the next time with Backyard Bullion. Thank you. Actually, why don't you say thanks to everyone, and I'll sign off on my end.
Well, a big thank you to you, Yankee, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know life is hectic for everybody right now, so it's good to sit down and do this, and we'll see everybody on the next one. Thank you, all of you out there in YouTube land, for watching. If you've not already done so, a thumbs up on both mine and Yankee Stacking's video, because we both published this video at the same time. It does help both of our channels with the YouTube algorithm and all of that jazz. And leave a comment as well, and let us know what you think about our fireside chat and your insights on the cultural differences between the US and the UK. Or if you're in another country, let us know your thoughts from where you are. Otherwise, I think that's basically us done. So big thank you to everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes, thank you. And to all my viewers, thank you so much. And I hope your day is A-OK.